Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching Sunday edition here on KTN News. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta finally signed into law a controversial finance bill of 2018 on Friday. The law takes effect immediately. On Thursday, the National Assembly passed the bill on a technicality after members of parliament staged a walkout that denied a chaotic and charged House that two-thirds majority to overturn the new taxation measures proposed by the president. Take a look.
In a record 15 hours, the Finance Bill 2018 was at the President's desk for signing. The bill spells out taxation measures the government will use to meet its development and recurrent budgets. After signing, the taxation laws took effect immediately. President Uhuru vowed to ensure proper use of public funds and said he will not relent on the war against corruption. And in a quick rejoinder, Amani National Congress Party leader Musalia Mudavadi wants the president to sack cabinet secretaries who may have misled the country to the current budget disaster.
We are having cabinet secretaries who have driven us to heavy debt in this country. We are having cabinet secretaries whose dockets are riddled with corruption allegations. It is time, as members of parliament, you stood up and started impeaching some of these errant cabinet secretaries. Article 152, because it does not require the two-thirds majority to impeach a cabinet secretary.
I propose a question.
On Thursday, the National Assembly passed the supplementary budget estimates that will form the basis for the passage of the Supplementary Appropriation Act for the 2018-2019 financial year. In its report to Parliament, the Budget and Appropriations Committee cautioned government against excessive borrowing. The afternoon session saw members engaged in a one-hour standoff, punctuated with shouts after they accused temporary Speaker Soipan Tuya of rigging an acclamation vote to shoot down the President's memorandum.
Will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as are of a contrary opinion say nay? Nay.
In the confusion, the majority and minority leadership in the House mobilized a section of MPs to walk out of the chambers and deny the opposing forces the much-needed quorum. Out of the 4 hours set for the afternoon session Thursday, the first 30 minutes were used to pass the supplementary budget, 1 hour lost in the standoff with temporary Speaker. The House later witnessed 20 minutes of calm as Speaker Justice Muturi listened to reasons that led to the standoff. 1 hour was later lost when the House could not reconvene after a 15 minutes break, leaving the Speaker with only 10 minutes to rush and pass the bill.
As many as that opinion say aye. Aye. Many opinion say nay. The ayes have it.
Patrick Amimo, KTN News.
Honourable members.
All right, let's take you back to the chaotic scenes inside the floor of the House on Thursday during that vote that was marred by what some of members of Parliament called irregularities. Listen.
Question, members. Which is that clause 18 of the bill be amended as proposed in the reservations by His Excellency the President by deleting paragraph B. Honourable members, will as many as are of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many... Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay?
So this has been one of our most watched video clip on our digital platforms. This vote by acclamation, the initial vote overseen by the temporary speaker there, the Narok woman representative Soipan Tuya. What is your take on that, Dismas?
Well, three things come to play. that you have to congratulate Honorable Soipan Tuya for respecting the procedures in the House. You also have to respect Adan Duale for a mastery of the standing procedures. I've seen a number of social commentators saying that Soipan Tuya is a sellout to the nation and Duale. But I think that is erroneous. I've taken time to interact with those standing orders. Mm-hmm. And wherever you've got an issue like this one, which requires number and is very controversial, one would have expected Soipan Tuya to establish whether or not you got 2/3, just out of public interest. But the procedures do not expect her to do anything. Mm-hmm. She'll put up the question, and whatever answer, even if the nays or ayes have it, it doesn't matter. But the moment she takes a decision and says the ayes have it, then what you would expect of rational members of the National Assembly is to quickly shout division or point of order and then demand for a division to be done. But these members of the National Assembly we had on that particular day
did not do that.
Did not do it. What did they do? They started shouting, Duale must go. They started saying, Muturi must go, instead of running with the standing orders, which allowed them to say division or let's maybe or raising a point of order. Mm-hmm. And Soipan told them, please remove all your cards and insert them again, so that we establish how many members we have right now at the National Assembly. None. Not a single MP did that. And then she said, let's do a physical count. Nobody wanted to be counted. So it seems to me that the members of the National Assembly were taking us for a ride. Because if they were very keen that they were fighting for Wanjiko's interest, before Soipan put the question, a member should have said point of order, Madam Speaker or Madam Chair, let's establish the quorum. Having done that, then if she says anything unacceptable, either the ayes have it or the nays have it, then they go to division.
So they were saying the reason they did not do that was because after that initial vote, the majority leader, Aden Duale, walked out with some members of parliament and messed up with the numbers. And they knew at that time that they did not have the 233 members needed to overrule the president.
They're giving a very lame excuse. All of them must have gone through the standing orders. And it's acceptable for those members to walk out if the speaker has not indicated as much. Because again, the same standing order 34 says that when the speaker says that now we are going to do a head count, yes, then at that stage, the only person who can walk in or out is the whip. Right. But before she did that, the members were going out. And in my view, we've got some members of the National Assembly divided in two categories. We actually have what you may describe as clergymen. For them, whatever came from the president was as good as law. And then another bunch, which is philosophers, they wanted to question. Right. But in as much as they were questioning in the public interest, where the rubber meets the road, whereby they're supposed to insert the card, and then we know who voted yes, who voted no. Nobody came to play. Tough questions being asked.
Mark, do you think there was a genuine intent by those lawmakers who are making a lot of noise to try and veto the president?
The only genuineness they had was to deceive the Kenyan public. That's the only thing they were genuine about. Because when you look at it very carefully, they said they would go to court. They've never gone to court. And the reason they've never gone to court is they know very, very well that, number one, they suppressed the numbers themselves. Number two, they know and Dismas has done a good job to explain the standing orders. Any speaker, including yourself, Ben, if you were there, the standing orders would have dictated that you do it the way the lady Soipan did it. Now, that I do not want to belabor that point, because clearly that was heckling just to make sure the public had the noise without any substance behind it. But let's interrogate what they were voting for or against. They were voting for either getting 8% tax or 0% tax, and if they had won the 0% tax, they would have had a period between now and at the end of the month, 30th September, to come up with a finance bill, and either way, they would still have had to cut expenditure from somewhere or to raise taxes from another place. So either way, Wanjiku was screwed in this deal. Wanjiku did not have a ball in this game. From the beginning, there was not going to be a reprieve for her. Now, the PR that was done there is to the detriment of a more serious and weighty conversation. We have just signed in a bill, okay, that increases taxes. We have not talked about, on the flip side, how are we going to stimulate the economy so that it can function despite the taxation. That is the heavier conversation. What Wanjiku and everyone is discussing now is we're chasing a red herring. That ship has sailed. Even if they went to court today, their standing orders themselves would disregard their arguments. So there's nothing to be spoken about there. What we must begin to ask ourselves, under this new tax regime, what stimulants exist to support business, to support small industries, to support individuals to be able to succeed?
Right.
Because without doing that, we're already shooting ourselves in the foot. But for us parliamentarians, they're as fake as they come. Let's just do ourselves a favor, get the local witch doctor to go to parliament, because what they're doing is witchcraft nonetheless.
Karl Marx, what did you take from that vote on the Finance Bill 2018?
Ben, first of all, you know, there was something like 16% VAT, there was also 8%, and then there is that lie of we are reducing. What was being reduced? Because we started at a point whereby the members of the parliament actually passed a bill with 0. So I don't know what happened within the State House back to the parliament so that Kenyans are now told there is something being reduced. There was nothing like that. Second to that, you must understand that a country whereby your vote and the vote of your member of parliament cannot actually count, then it's a country whereby we're being ruled by the corrupt and also
do you believe the members who are shouting and holding protests outside parliament were actually genuine? They wanted to shoot it down.
Actually, I will actually define it that by the mere fact they never wanted to take position or maybe to stand with some principles, that I don't want to look like I'm going to go against the president or maybe against I mean the Raila Odinga in terms of how they were whipped, because that will tell you that there was a problem. Because when you talk of the the genuineness, these leaders actually failed. The members of parliament failed the electorate because they could have stood out to make sure that what we were talking about is that if the executive can actually get to a point whereby they are undermined in terms of their independence and also credibility, would you still talk of that given parliament? Because next minute, you will not even need a Kenyan to go and do anything. It's about some 2-3 people who will be sitting down, they come up with the same bill, then acclamation still will actually make it to be what we want. Because you can't convince a common man that, how is it that now the lady speaker could only see it in terms of the nays, okay, but not. Was it? I mean, the
eyes have it.
The eyes have it. You know.
She said
now,
both.
The opposite now. I mean, really. So I think profoundly, I think also the voters, we have to take the blame, because we were given opportunity to go and elect leaders. We decided to come up with these cheap crooks masquerading as leaders. And so don't expect anything. That shit, we must actually buy it and we must agree with it. But again, the fish always rot from the top. There is lack of leadership within the parliament. And the speaker is not exempted in this.
All right, we'll get into that. We'll get into the parliamentary leadership versus the executive. Kipchumba, what was your take home from this? And who do you think is the biggest loser in this?
From where I sit, it was a vote on, first, it was, there are things that happened. The first one being, it was a vote on the Big Four. And I can say we are up to now, like most African countries, we do not know which one, because we have not seen the returning of so-called a vote. Because what was being voted for or against was in order to enable the Big Four to take root. And up to now, I was confused is that we seem to have been forcing people to take development or to take the route towards prosperity of this country. The other thing that also I was happy about was that Kenyans are testing their own medicine. For the longest time, we have been eating handouts. When we are told interrogate somebody's manifesto and somebody's leadership credentials, we say we want the money part of a candidate. Now that is the return on investment on looking for cheap handouts instead of leadership credentials in somebody. The other point is this also. For me, I do not look at the theatrics and the PR around what the parliamentarians did in parliament or not. What I ask myself is, this is the danger of having a group of people, maybe with good or bad intentions, but with nobody to lead them. The parliamentarians, the Mohammed Jichopevu, the women rep from Laikipia and everybody, and Kinalomenen, they might have had good intentions, but they failed in terms of they did not have anybody to lead them. The confusion they had amongst themselves is what transpired to Bunge. And the other thing, there are people blaming Duale. You need to realize that Duale is the leader of official government business. He did what he had to do to make sure that government came out.
So where does that leave John Mbadi then? Because now when you're saying those opposing MPs lack leadership, you would expect that would be Mbadi, who is a leader of minority.
We cannot say the opposing MPs. For me, and also it's a source of happiness to Kenyans, that a crisis like this, tax issue, can unite Kenyans such that we do not see people in their tribal cocoons, right. We do not see them in their party affiliation. And the last question you asked, who won and who lost? The first person who lost in a big way is Wanjiku. Wanjiku lost because of return on investment. Zero return on investment on the leadership. Right. What she or he expected did not happen. Secondly, the other person who lost in a big way is Mudavadi. This was a gold mine for Mudavadi to take up leadership, to stand out as an opposition leader and give us direction as a country. He lost that. The other person who lost in how I view these things is Uhuru Kenyatta. Uhuru Kenyatta won the battle of getting the bill passed in Parliament, but he lost the battle of making members of Parliament on the Big Four agenda. Therefore, he seems to be a lone ranger in pushing the Big Four agenda. It ought to have been the other way around.
All right. Let's take you back to Parliament very quickly and take a look at more drama. This, of course, pitting the leader of majority in the National Assembly, Aden Duale, who walked out after that initial votes by acclamation with some members of parliament. Some of his colleagues were accusing him of locking some members of parliament inside a toilet. And then there was a lot of noise from MP TJ Kajwang, decrying the manner in which that vote was carried out. Listen.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we were 304. I have not called anybody. I have not called anybody. We were 234. When Don Duale led a hound of people away, all of them went. Mr. Speaker, sir, what do you have to rule on? Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to get your attention. I request your attention, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, one of the issues you have to rule on is whether after a vote has been called and when there is no division, he is distracting me, and when there is no division called, are members able to leave the chamber? And if they leave the chamber, is that discounted from the general membership of the plenary when we started with the vote? Mr. Speaker, sir, I will leave for the rest, but that one issue, you need to decide whether it was, first of all, in order for Duale to leave his people, no, Honorable Duale to leave his people, and two, if they went out, is that discounted from the general membership of the plenary? Okay, you can do nothing. This is Bunge.
So that's Ruaraka Member of Parliament, TJ Kajwang. Duale Dismas did not try to deny all that. He said he used those unorthodox means to try and win that vote, and that is his work as leader of majority. Do you agree?
Yes, I do agree with him 100%. And I'd like you to introduce me to Duale so that I buy him a cup of coffee, because he did an amazing job. He's the leader of majority, and this is his core business. This is what he's supposed to be doing. So he was merely doing his job. Why would anybody want to criticize Duale for doing his job? He did a good job. He has demonstrated that he has mastered the standing orders, that most of his colleagues do not have a clue. Maybe they need the speaker to give them that booklet where they can study the standing orders. He did not do anything outside the standing orders. He followed the standing orders to the hilt. Now, if you want to see the mischief with those members of the National Assembly, on Thursday morning, they passed all of them in a unanimous way, the expenditure proposals, right, as the president had suggested. So in the morning, you pass all expenditure proposals without reservations. And then in the evening, you claim you want to negate the revenue-raising measures. So in the morning, then why did you pass all those expenditure proposals from Kenyatta without any reservation? So there is a mischief. But I think the Kenyans are getting white by the day. Then number two, You recall March 9th, there was the handshake at Arambe House. And then on Sunday, I was among the first Kenyans to say that this handshake is coming, at some stage is going to haunt Kenyans. And this is what has happened. That President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga decided these proposals will go through by hook or crook. And they've gone through. So Kenyans, if they want to start blaming Raila Odinga, they're doing a big mistake.
All right.
Yeah.
Very quickly, Mark, where does this leave John Mbadi, the leader of minority in the National Assembly? He was one of those members who walked out and was following the proceedings at a television set just outside Parliament. And there was that picture doing rounds on social media. I mean, Duale, you are praising Duale for doing an exemplary job as the leader of government business. But where does this leave Mbadi? He's seen as the man who was supposed to be leading those troops opposing this.
You know, Kenyans really need to learn that you can't have your cake and eat it. When there was an opposition in this country, you decided not to listen to them, okay? You can't then now want to dictate how people you didn't vote for behave. Okay, let's be very clear. These people who are accusing accusing Raila...
Well, Mbadi was voted for. He's a member of parliament. And he's the leader of minorities.
Yes, Raila was also voted for.
Work.
And the ODM party position, as per the press conference after their PG, was that they would give support to President Uhuru Kenyatta's amendment. And therefore, John Mbadi's job in the House was to make sure those amendments pass. What is the easiest way to make those amendments pass? Deny the numbers. It's simple mathematics. And this is what Kenyans voted for. This is what you wanted. So again, I join Dismas in congratulating Mbadi for doing what his party wanted to do. And let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is the consequence of your democratic choice.
All right.
You gave them that power to do that. So the reality of the matter is this idea where now you want to say, oh, Raila should come out and defend us. He has defended you enough, and there's nothing to defend you against. You chose your leaders. You went and voted. This is your cake. Enjoy it, my dear sister.
All right.
Love it.
Let's take a quick, let's leave it there for now. We are coming back with more on this particular issue. Let's take a quick commercial break on a Sunday edition here on KTN News. When we come back, we'll talk about the position of place of the National Assembly, of Parliament for that matter, in this system of governance. Kenya is a presidential democracy, meaning that members of Parliament, there is no opposition, so members of Parliament generally have that mandate of oversight over what the executive is doing. So we'll talk about what happened last week during that vote for the Finance Bill of 2018. Is Parliament losing out or losing or ceding ground to the executive, whether the minority or the majority parties in that National Assembly? What do you think? Many people seem to think that Kenyans have been left on their own. Don't go too far.